Emilia, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Very exciting to have you here. And we always begin with just some of the basics. Where were you born and raised? What did your folks do for a living?
So I was born in London, but raised in the countryside around London, sort of in Oxfordshire. And my dad was a sound designer for the theatre. And my mum, I know this off by heart now, was a vice president of marketing for a global management consultancy.
Wow, very
there you
impressive.
go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was it at all because of your dad that you were first exposed, I would guess, to theater or acting or whatever?
I think, yes, it has to be. But I said I wanted to be an actor really, really young. Around the time, when you're that young, you're like, you don't know what your parents actually do. You're like, well, they're not at home and then they are at home, and that's kind of it. But yeah, I grew up being able to be backstage, which is still the most magical. Like, I just love the theatre, just love being in theatres, love being in that space. It makes me feel really at home. And the magic that's there, and knowing that I kind of had a way in.
Right.
Always, and knowing that I kind of got to see how it all came about.
Who is Jessica? I believe we owe Jessica thanks for losing out to you in a role or something early on. Is that true? I was reading, and maybe it's bullshit, but maybe even when you were 5 or something in school, was that the first
Oh my God, yes. Jess. Oh my God. That's hilarious. So basically, I was really little and we had this school play, and my teacher kind of gave us like a mini audition. I mean, it's bonkers when you look back and you're like, I was like 4 years old. What the hell? And she gave us a mini audition, and we both had to read this one line: "Mama, where is my glove?" Still know it. Great memory. And she read it and I read it. And then my teacher was like, I think, Emilia, you're going to play this, and then you're going to play this, and da-da-da-da. And I remember just being really like, whoa, yeah, that's cool. That
was the turning point. It could have all been different.
Could have all been different. And then ironically, by the time I actually got on stage, I forgot all of my lines and just stood there.
So you asked to then, I guess, go off to boarding school. Was boarding school where you were now? Did this continue there?
Boarding school was like the least theatrical moment of my life, in that no one did it. So you got the main part again, Emilia. Guess what? Because no one else wanted it. Like everyone else was doing hockey, and I was like, I'm going to go to the drama block and do some drama. One of my bestest friends is still, we looked at some videos of his wife, found videos of us when we were doing school plays, and it was, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that my mum sat doing that.
So when along the line was it that you first started thinking about, all right, I want to actually pursue this when I go off, I guess to equivalent of college or beyond? Like, when did it become a serious thing, and how did that go over at home? Well,
so yeah, I was really young when I was like, no, I'm going to be an actor. And my dad was just, not into that as much. Because he saw the truth of what acting really was, and he saw you want to come into this self-employed world. Excellent. Couldn't imagine anything better for my child. Right. And so I was really young, and he kind of gave me a taster and took me to a West End audition when I was really little, and I completely messed it up. And he kind of didn't let me know what I was in for, which I think was really smart. Mm-hmm. I turned up and I didn't have a song prepared, and I had to make it up. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was on the West End stage, singing donkey riding. Yeah. It was pretty epic. And they very sweetly gave me a recall. And I didn't get it, and that was exactly what should have happened. And so then, as a result of that, my parents were like, okay, do you want to go to maybe stage school at this tender age of 10? Do you want to maybe have a look around, because you're really serious about this? So we looked around this particular stage school, and it was there was a lot of dance, and there was a lot of, the triple threat. They were making these people who could do everything perfectly. Right. And I just walked in and saw these girls in the slick back ballet hair, and they scared the crap out of me.
That was it for a while.
Yeah, I looked at my parents and said, I can't do this. This isn't who I am. But when I'm 18, I'll go to drama school. And that was like the thing that I pinned all my hopes on. So from a very young age, I was certain I was going to go to drama school. And that was the plan.
Well, and that itself went almost askew, right? Because, so how does this happen?
Can you imagine that? I've been saying at that point, almost 10 years I'd been saying, right, I'm gonna go to drama school, and it's gonna be great. And I'd been at this boarding school where acting was not particularly important, no matter how much I tried. And then I get to the drama school stage, and I think, I'm just gonna apply to these two, the big ones.
RADA.
Sure thing. RADA and Lambda.
Yep.
Neither of them wanted me. I did one. I mean, these things are 8 rounds normally. I think I got to, I was knocked out in the first round in both, and had a bit of a what am I going to do with my life kind of moment. And then took a gap year and did that, earned some money and went traveling and stuff. And then I applied to about 14 drama schools. I was pretty hell-bent on going and didn't get into any again, apart from I was on the waiting list for one.
But are you thinking to yourself, like, what is going on? Because it's not, you were clearly talented and you had the desire to do it. So why do you think that was happening?
I didn't know how to audition.
Really?
Is what I'm going to say. And I just wasn't prepared. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for. I'd been living this dream of like, I'm going to go to drama school and be an actor. And no one had actually, I had never met anyone who'd actually said, this is what you do.
Right.
Because doing the whole drama school, there's a thing to it. You know, you got to like, and a lot of these kids are coming from places where that's just in, you know, everyone, oh, my such and such is this and that. My dad was a sound designer. He didn't know any, like, this was, he would be asking people at work and they'd be like, well, I don't know. I don't know, just kind of. So yeah, I was just completely naive to how it all worked. And I think I'd been kind of just living along with the idea of being an actor being a really lovely idea. And so I think I got in by the skin of my teeth.
Well, that's kind of a crazy circumstance that made it possible, right?
Yeah. So something happened to the girl who had my place. She broke her leg or something.
Right.
And so they called me and they were like, someone's pulled out.
This is the Drama Center.
Drama Center, yeah, nicknamed Trauma Center. So I picked a good one.
Right. Oh my God.
And so then I got that place and had like this is how hard it is.
Well, I was reading some other interviews that you've done, and the way it sounds, well, I'll quote you right back. I got the Jewish grandmothers and all the farcical parts, close quote. Like, it may be hard for some of our listeners to believe, but you basically said that you felt like everybody else there was more beautiful, more talented, all of this stuff. How could this be?
I mean, like you heard, I was coming at this really for someone who'd said that they wanted to be an actor for a really long time. I didn't really think through what it is to become an actor till pretty late in the day, because I was just like, I'm just going to do it. It's going to be fine. I believe in myself. That's enough. It's not enough, folks. You heard it here first. Yeah. It ain't enough. So I went to drama school and just had the rudest awakening and was like, oh my God, I need to have read all of this stuff I haven't read. I need to have watched all of these things I don't know. You know, I could quote Clueless, sure. Right. But that only goes so far.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not stupid. I was aware. And when I was much smaller, I would like learn Shakespeare off by heart. But getting to drama school, I really understood what it was to actually be an actor and actually really know your craft and be taught. And the first rule that we got taught was the first rule of acting is you sweep the stage. So it was really pretty hardcore and kind of conservatoire in its thought process, which for someone like me, I just loved that and really, really loved getting my teeth into it and kind of never taking a day off and like working as hard as I could and being the eager beaver in the class and trying really hard, which resulted in a lot of Jewish grannies.
Well, yeah. I mean, is that frustrating to you, though, at the time that, you know, did you feel like it was a bad thing that you were not getting the leads? Do you now feel differently in hindsight? Like,
yes, I do. I really do. I didn't really get to do the kind of roles, the ingenue, you know, Shakespeare classical roles that you as a kid that you always want to do. You know, like you're at school, you're like, I want to be the pretty popular blonde girl in the cheerleading team. Right. That's who I want to be. And so when you're there, it sucks but what it allowed me to do is have so much more freedom trying to be, you know, maybe I can be funny. Maybe I could do that. And then really loved it and did this one farce quite early on and was like, oh, I can do this. This is why I watched I Love Lucy reruns 1,000 times. Is because it all comes to the same place.
When you showed up there, were you thinking, my ultimate dream is to be a theater actress, or were you already thinking screen would be nice?
I just wanted to be an actor. So it was really weird. I think I came at it knowing about the theatre, but thinking I want to be a screen actor. And then I got there and went, all I want to do is theatre. This is exactly where it's at. I love it so much. And also, they don't teach you anything about screen. They don't, we had Michael Caine video telling us how to hit our mark. That was literally it.
I know which video you're talking about.
Yeah, I still use some of his tricks.
Yeah.
That's still how. It's still literally the only thing I came armed at Game of Thrones with. I was like, okay, I need to look in this eye.
I always think, like, what was going on in Michael Caine's career at that time when he was like, all right, I'll make an instructional video.
Tell me about it. It's the birth of a generation of actors, though. Exactly. Like, there's a bunch of us who were like, don't blink. Never blink.
So you get through, what was that, like, probably 3 years of that school?
3 years of that school, which was genuinely the happiest years of my life.
Wow.
Like 100%. It was just joy, just complete joy. I met my tribe.
And then you are thrust out into the real world.
Yeah.
So for the period of, I don't know, maybe a little more than a year, I think, between the end of drama school and the beginning of the Game of Thrones chapter.
Yeah.
What was going on? You were working, but not necessarily at things you want to do.
I was grimacing behind a bar. I was playing Snow White to bratty kids. I was doing a lot of catering. I was just getting fired from every job because I would just
telemarketing. I heard.
Yeah, I did. I did. Like it's for charity, where you kind of call people and say like, "You want to give us maybe a little more money?"
That's the call everyone's thrilled to get.
Oh my goodness! And you have to hear them say no 3 times before you can legally hang up. Before in the terms of like the company that I was working for, before you can hang up. So you got a lot. You get dealt with a lot of. And most of the time, I'd just end up chatting to them and being like, "Are you okay? Can I talk about like what's going on in your life right now?" So yeah, I was terrible at everything. And like I can't do maths, so I behind the bar, I'm like giving people £20 notes back from a 20. Then you just have the drink on me. It's fine.
It's all on me. What about a commercial in 2009? That's unusual.
The Samaritans advert.
That's the one where you were a
crying in a council
victim
flat.
of abuse.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. My agent called me and was like, "Listen, I just think this might be helpful. This might not be helpful. It might be something you should do."
Right.
And
for like a minute.
Did you hear the Snow White and the catering and I'm like, yes, as in you're going to give me someone's going to give me money to do the acting. That's what I cried for 3 years for. Yeah, so I did that and it was actually really incredible. It was a 14-hour solid day of me essentially crying in this council flat in this like really grungy environment and getting really emotive.
Yeah. That's true. I think you have a full minute of just crying in the...
Yeah. That's it. And it was kind of extraordinary because it kind of weirdly taught me a lot.
Probably you have to... Where are you drawing that from? Like what you hopefully...
Well, that's it. It's like one long... Okay, it's some... there are things you're going to have to do as an actor and crying on screen is one of them. And because I was fresh out of drama school, I had all the tools. So I kind of had to play, like see how this all works. And also there was a camera in my face for the whole time, so you're kind of learning about that, like that language between the actor and the camera, which I haven't had yet. That was your first screen acting. That was my first. Oh my god, that was my first. No, I take it back. My previous screen acting was guest lead on a daytime television show called Doctors,
which
everyone talks about their doctor's duty.
Right, that was yours.
Yeah, you got to do it. Bonnet duty or doctor's duty. So I did that.
And then there was a movie role, but so prominent that you've never bothered to watch it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So but this is just to say.
Never seen it.
Never to this day, still.
To this day, I can't.
So,
I just can't.
I mean, I don't even have the title, so you've done a nice job of hiding it, right? But a lot was going on, probably not a lot of what you were hoping would be going on, but in that year, and you had sort of given yourself a year to like make it happen or not. Or get out?
Yeah, that was my little rule to myself. Like I kind of, I just said when I left drama school, I was like, okay, you've got a year. And I'd had like a bunch of stuff happen at the end of drama school with like different reps and terrible, stupid things happened. Right. And so I was very like, don't mess this up, okay? You're not going to be underprepared. This is your shot.
Right.
Let's be realistic about this, which is what my dad always gave me, the insight of like, do you know how hard it is to be an actor? Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And you're self-employed and you're sure? Do you want a mortgage? Right. Are you really sure? Yeah, so I gave myself a year to say, if it doesn't set my world alight, I'm not going to take it.
And that year basically came and went.
Yeah, so I turned down one thing.
What was that?
Which, like my friends were like, you can't, Emilia, who do you think you are? You can't turn down work. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
It was a play above a pub. And it was for quite a long run. And so I didn't take it. And I was like, no, I'm just going to... And I was coming to the end of that year and I was working at this museum, this really bizarre museum that really hired a lot of actors to kind of do a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from my agent back in the day when you'd like run to find somewhere quiet to speak to them. Michael, I still do. Jeremy, I still do. I still do. I swear to God, I do. I promise you. Oh, shit. So I ran to the loo and like stood on because people checked to see where you're like whispering, being like, hey, like, what's up? What are you calling me about?
Right.
And he just said, have you heard of Game of Thrones? And I was like, nope, doesn't matter.
Hadn't heard of the book, hadn't heard of the fact that they'd actually done a pilot with Tom McCarthy, right? That's how.
Yeah, and I hadn't.
Yeah, and that was somebody else and just it didn't go, and now they wanted to give it another shot.
Yeah. And that was exactly it. So my agent told me all of this on the phone, and I was just like, HB, you shitting me? Oh my God, I'm going to quit now. I'm going to quit my job. Right. So I ran home, called in sick the next day, and learned my lines.
Well, and did you feel like you had to familiarize yourself with these, the source material, or?
Yeah, it was a lot of Wikipedia. It was a lot of cheat sheeting. It was a lot of like, okay, there's dragons, let's go.
So where was the audition?
My first audition was with Nina Gold. God love her,
right.
In her gorgeous house in London. And so I went and they put me on tape.
Do you remember what you had to do?
Yes, I did the first speech. So in season 1, listeners, if this is going to spoil something for you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, tough.
There's a scene with my brother, and he basically, it's the first time that I stop him from hitting me. And then the next thing that I had to learn was the final speech to my Dothraki tribe.
Right.
So it was to kind of to give them, if I could do both, you know what I mean? If I could do that like turn. And learned it and went and got like, this was also in a time when I kind of actually still do this sometimes. For auditions, you'll sort of dress slightly leaning into something that might be helpful for the character.
Okay.
So I got this, it was this necklace, and it had it was kind of tribal. And I was like, I think this is going to be helpful. Anyway, so I wore that, and then I wore that to every audition I had for it.
After that.
To the point where Dan Weiss is like, yeah, you wore that funky necklace. I'm like, yes, it works. I'm always going to try and wear something that's a little helpful.
So that video that's done with Nina Gold goes over to
D&D, to David and Dan, to the execs.
And you now get, hey, we want to bring you over to America to do the next round?
So that they go, hey, meet us in a room in Soho.
Oh, okay.
And we'll hear you. And it was one of those rooms that you can hear everything through the door. So they were obviously seeing a bunch of girls. Right. And so I heard the girl before me, which is just horrific. I mean, it's horrific. Yeah. It's just mean. And so I walked in, and it's this weird thing. I'll never forget it. There was just this table with just this incredible fruit platter on it, and I remember being like, this is like the fanciest audition I've ever been to.
It's HBO for you. Yeah. Wow.
I'm seriously plays in pubs, you know what I mean? This was heavy. So it was Nina and David and Dan and Carolyn Strauss, and I think that was everyone in that audition.
Same scenes
then
again.
I did it for them. Yes,
same
exactly the same thing. So after that, I waited a couple days, and I was with my boyfriend at the time in his place in Cornwall, and they called me and they were like, you got 3 weeks, you're on a plane to LA. By this point, I'd bought the book and was like, oh, okay, working my way through it.
Right.
3 weeks happened, and then by the time I got there, and I mean, literally, this was 3 weeks where I would do everything everything to not bring about, in London, there's 3 drains, and there's a lot of people in the world who maybe will listen to this and go, yeah, I do that too.
Right.
Where you can't step on the 3 drains. This is bad luck. So I didn't step on any drains.
Okay.
And I worked out, and I was really I just saw it like a kind of, I was like Rocky. I was just so into it. And I read the book I think I read the book twice in that time.
Wow.
I was obsessed. Yeah. I was just like, this is going to happen. This has to happen.
And you were personally you were into that kind of material, or it was just this is what's coming, I better get into it?
Yeah, it was more that I saw that there was a girl who had a lot of stuff. There was stuff there. There was and then when I read the books, I was like, oh no, this is a part. This is a really, the book, she gets her own chapter. All the characters have the chapter. I'm like, she's got her own chapter. This is heavy. This is big. This is going to be really a special thing. So yeah, they flew me to LA. They flew me business class. I stole all the tea. I just was like, I'm never going to be here again. Enjoy every minute. And then I got to HBO, and there was another girl who was also auditioning, and I tried really hard not to see her. So they'd be like, oh, so-and-so, whoever it was, is just walking up there, and I'd turn because I knew she was going to be 6 foot and gorgeous and some absolute babe. And I was just like, no, I can't let that get in my head.
But just because what must have been in your head was that even when your agent, I guess, pitched you to the casting director to initiate this process, he or she did that knowing that according to the description of the character in the book, you were not right.
I ain't that.
Right?
I mean, I think my agent probably strong-armed Nina.
Right.
I've got a kind of sneaky suspicion that Nina was like, I don't know who this girl is. She's fresh out of drama school, and she looks nothing like the part.
Which was saying a tall
and willowy. willowy, people. I mean, come on. Like, I've spent the rest of my life dreaming of being willowy. It ain't never gonna happen. 5'2", okay? Like, no willow here.
So you're in LA now. It's your turn.
Yeah,
What
I
happens?
know. So then I do the audition, and it's in an auditorium. It's in like a cinema screening room, and there are like 20 people there, all huddled in the middle. Oh my God. And I was I'd had 3 weeks of complete like everyone who I knew this was happening, and everyone who I knew was like waiting by the phone, being like, come on, Emilia, you can do this. And yeah, so I get in and they told me to dress nice. So I did. And it took me it was like a week's worth of shopping to come up with this white dress and these wedge heels. So I go trotting down the stairs and do the audition. And they had prepped me and said, we might get you to do something else.
Because initially it was the same scenes, or was...
Yes, and Harry Lloyd was there.
Okay.
Who plays my brother.
Right.
And he was there and was just the sweetest, most like encouraging, kind guy. And so I did the scenes with him, which was really helpful. And so they had told me, be prepared to do something else. So at the end, I mean, I had so much adrenaline. I didn't know. It was like I was on drugs.
Right.
It was so intense. And so then I said at the end, like, is there anything else I can do? Is there something you need me to do other than that? Because I'm ready.
Right.
Because I'm ready.
Come a long way.
Yeah. I think I'd been like small talking with someone about the workout regime I'd done. So that I was, they'd cracked some joke about like, oh, I could do some high kicks. And I tried. I was wearing this silly dress, so couldn't.
Right.
And then David Benioff, in all his hilarity, was like, well, you could do a dance. Funny. Now I know it's just funny. Don't always do what David Benioff tells you to do.
Right.
And then I did. Did the funky chicken, because what else do you do when you've got that much adrenaline and you're a kid and you're not willowy and you're doing everything you can?
You must have done an excellent funky chicken. So like, how long after that?
The funky chicken.
Yeah, after did that sealed the deal? I guess.
I just don't know. I think that video is out there somewhere, because I saw recorded. At some point, this was something you do learn as an actor as well later on in life, is when to leave the room.
Right.
Oi.
That could have.
Yeah, I'm like, Emilia, it's time to leave the room.
Right.
At that point, I didn't know it was time to leave the room, so I think I even broke into the robot before I knew. I was like, okay, it's like I think someone saved me. I was
video,
like, you can go.
One day. We'll get to see. But so, all right, you eventually leave the room. How did you get back to London before you knew that?
So then I go into the room that I'd sort of been held in with all the Diet Coke that I had drunk, hence all of the jitters. And Dan and Frank Dolger and David came in, and they just said, congratulations, princess.
Oh, wow.
And I it makes me feel all tingly even think about it. It was just the most happiest moment of my entire existence. It was literally just insane.
Oh, no, that's amazing. Did they tell you what actually tipped the scales for you? Like why they said
the funky chicken.
I
mean, that's it. If there's anything that Danny is,
right?
It's a willowy funky chicken.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I've got no idea.
No idea.
To know.
Just to restate this, because it's kind of unbelievable. This was the first real role that you'd ever been hired to play.
Yes.
As a professional actor.
Yes.
And I think for enough, Sophie Turner, same thing, I think, right? And maybe Maisie, I don't know. That's kind of, they're betting a major thing on a lot of people who have never...
It's extraordinary. Right? I think that, Game of Thrones is one of those... It's just a thing unto itself that I think only on my deathbed will I really get it. Because I'm in it, so I can't even begin to understand. People did you know? I'm like, of course I bloody didn't. No. Well, no idea.
How intimidating was it when you now, are starting to really prep to actually do it now, and then also you show up and probably for the first time appreciated the scale of what you were dealing with? Were you able to just kind of stomach that, or was that a tough adjustment?
Yeah, well, I mean, every actor, of course, everyone who's self-employed can get this, is you get the job and you're euphoric for 30 seconds.
Right.
I mean, back then I was partied for a week. Right. But legitimately, everyone I knew was like, let's throw a party. I'm like, okay, I'm employed.
Right.
But you get the job and you get excited for a second, and then the daunting realization that you actually have to do it comes in and you're like, oh no, I've got to actually turn up. And I think I was on a knife edge the entire way through filming that first season. I don't think I ever relaxed at any point. I carried the book around like it was some kind of talisman.
Right.
I mean, I have so many notes in it. I used to read it religiously every night. I pulled out every acting trick I had in my bag and took it incredibly seriously because I didn't understand what it was being on a film set. Assistant directors follow you everywhere to check that you're not, like, going to run away because it's on them.
Right.
Like, if you don't turn up, someone's going to get fired.
Right.
I couldn't quite handle that kind of like, oh, you do. Like, I thought I had some sort of weird echo, like, Emilia's going to the loo, she's going to the loo. And you're like, we're going to take a minute. So I used to hide in car parks before preparing for some of the difficult scenes.
Right.
I literally remember vividly of crouching behind some wall behind a car, just kind of taking a breath and being like, okay, you can do this, everything's going to be fine. So there was a lot of that. There's a lot of hiding in car parks. It's season 1.
And even though right now, just for listeners, I'm looking across you are blonde today, but you are not.
At last.
Yes, at last.
It happened.
But like the fact is you are not naturally blonde.
No.
And when you show up and they need you to be blonde, are they dyeing your hair? Are they giving you a wig?
No,
What's happening?
they gave me a wig straight away.
Yeah.
And it was the most epic hair test in the world. I think we tried my incredible hair department, Kev Alexander, Candice. They are literal geniuses. Like, normally you go to the hairdressers and you're like, I'm going to go peroxide blonde, and they'll go, it doesn't suit you, you've got really dark hair, that's never going to work. And so they made this beautiful colour that everyone was happy with, and the most beautiful wig.
Right.
Takes a minute to put on because I'm very dark hair and no one ever wants to see that it's a wig. So everyone thinks that that was my hair for a very long time.
It's a lot of hair.
It's a lot of hair.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hair. Yeah.
I know you said you were stressed the whole first season, but were you able to get the sense during the making of it that you were a part of something that was really special? Again, I guess you didn't have a point of reference because it was your first thing, but
no, that's it.
Did you have to see it to really get it?
So it's really, really hard, and I wrestle with this quite a lot because I had absolutely no idea what was going on when it was going on. Because, I mean, I literally would just wake up and try and survive the day. Like, literally, don't let them know that they shouldn't have hired you, because they shouldn't have hired you. Like, just every day thinking this is going to be, you're going to get, it's never going to, I didn't understand that lots of people were going to watch it.
Right.
I didn't, I remember vividly, I was on holiday in this tiny little place in Italy when it was being aired. So I was away from it all. And I got a call from my agent being like, you're number 1 on IMDb. And I was like, what is IMDb? I don't understand what that is. And so I Googled it and was like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
This was after the first episode.
This was after the first, first at some point during that time. I can't even, I think maybe episode 2. Or I literally, but I had no idea what they were talking about. I had no idea about any of it.
You didn't imagine that it was going to be that big.
No.
Yeah.
Not in a...
I guess how could you? That would be, it would be crazy.
I mean, no. And so, people are like, how did it feel to sign up for that many seasons? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even know I did. Right. Like, I could have been fired at any point. I was faking it.
Well, I got such a kick out of one story, which I kind of hope is true, that so the show goes on HBO, debuted April 17th, 2011. But before that, in January, are the Golden Globes, the SAG Awards, Critics' Choice, all of that run up to it. And I believe that you attended the SAG Awards for the first time in January 2011, 3 months before it was on the air, because they like to raise awareness and try to. And so how did that go for you?
So, people listening, SAG Awards, it's a lot of photographers.
Right.
It's a really big bank of photographers, like almost the most, and still to this day, to me, one of the most daunting red carpets you could ever walk. Bearing in mind, I ain't never walked no red carpet.
At
like,
that point,
never, not ever.
Right.
Beg, borrow, steal address. Like, please just let me go. Yeah, so I turn up and I'm kind of ushered onto the carpet, and you're like, okay, because I can do this now. I now know what a mark is. And now I know I've got to stand on my mark. Okay, there we go. Who are you? Who are you? What's your name? Oh, come on, sweetheart, crack us a smile. Who are you? And they're screaming this. And there's this huge bank of photographers. I mean, I don't know, there's probably like 100 people there, and they're all screaming that.
This is 3 months before they would murder each other to get a clean shot.
No, I still get it sometimes.
Right.
Emily, over here. Camilla, Sandra. I'm like, who are you? And I ain't none of those names. You got a list? Just take a glance.
Right.
And so I had, in this split second moment, this decision to make. I'm like, you can either shout your name,
Right. Or
you can either
smile.
say, sorry, it's Emilia with an E, with a clock. It's got an E at the end as well, in case you sort of, and it's actually spelled with an I. And so I thought, I'm not going to do that because I'm pretty sure that they're going to take a picture of me mouthing my name, which ain't pretty.
No.
And so I decided to just stand there. Harness myself at 4 on that stage, having forgotten her lines.
That's
just
so funny.
stand there and absorb it. And I thought, if no one's going to take my picture, the one person who does will get me standing looking poised.
That's it. Okay, so now you get to April. It goes out for the first time.
Yeah.
How quickly and in what ways did your like day-to-day life change?
What? Because I'm brown haired, it day to day didn't change, aside from the fact of people being like, oh, I've seen your show, or like, I don't like you now, you've ruined a successful show, I'm no longer your friend.
Right.
And just kind of, I remember my amazing brother, my big brother Ben, he went on eBay and he bought a mug with my face on it for 99p because he was like, dude, your face is on a mug.
That
And
was
it's being sold on eBay. We still have it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like a really shoddy printed job of my face on a mug that, still is at home. Makes me feel kind of weird. So yeah, it didn't really change. And then I've literally been playing catch up ever since. And so, and then I'd just go to work and I'd approach it in exactly the same way. And the only thing that changed was that I was kind of getting different calls. You know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah. So,
Like I had a show reel now,
Right.
and stuff was sort of changing. But also still, Game of Thrones was successful, absolutely, in the beginning, but it's been growing and growing and growing and growing. And I feel like now it's at its peak.
Right.
But in the beginning, people still hadn't seen it. And a lot of people were like, oh no, that's all like nudity and violence. I'm not into that. Or like, I don't do sci-fi.
Right.
Or I don't do fantasy. Or whatever genre they decided it was in. So there was a lot of that, of people being like, no. So it's kind of extraordinary to see a genre come about to be incredibly popular.
Yeah. you
after
guys
the fact.
Made that happen. Yeah. It's for TV.
Yeah, so it was kind of really interesting, but luckily for me, because I had brown hair, no one really knew who I was. So I would take Kit's picture a lot.
People would be
People would be like,
my God.
oh my God, will you take a picture of us, please? And I'm like, sure, I will. And so then I remember we went to this gig and I went to the loo and and Kit went to the loo and Alf went to the loo and then I went to the loo and the girls who were in the next door cubicle were like, oh my God, it's Jon Snow. He's so cute. Look at his hair. And I was just on the loo being like, lol. And so that happened a fair amount. And it also allowed me to be in rooms with people who would treat me like a normal person.
That's nice.
And when they would turn it, and then they would realise it and go, oh, I should have spoken to you. And you're like, ooh, interesting. Yeah. You're not nice.
Good social experiment.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is. It really is.
So to come back to something else you just referenced a second ago,
yes.
I would think that for anyone, let alone someone who has never really acted professionally prior to this,
yes,
having to do any nudity, let alone the volume of nudity, especially in the early seasons, that would be intimidating, even for the most beautiful person in the world, which Esquire quickly decided you were.
Yeah. Esquire and my mum, yeah.
Yeah, and your mom. But at that point, you're just like, again, to remind people, like a 23-year-old girl who's like new to this and being asked to do this. So I think that you have said in some other things that I read that it's not like you were a nudist or something before this, that it's just naturally what you do.
No.
So was it a bit like jarring to be asked to do as much as you were, or any of it?
It's really interesting because I came from drama school where the character was it and the words were it, and you paid service to that, and I was trained to read my script and to do my homework and to do it well and to find a reason for everything. Like it's on you. You're saying those words. Why are you saying those words? I don't know. Figure it out. Because it's the right words. Because that's what the character is. It's all there. So same thing goes for the actions. And it wasn't like she was a stripper.
Right.
She wasn't choosing to do these things. They were happening to her. And so was it daunting for me as a 23-year-old to do it? Yes, 100%. Hell, it's daunting anyway.
Right.
But I must admit, I believe, having done it, people care more for her as a character because they've seen her suffer. So there's that. But the the volume of interest in the fact that I took my clothes off is astonishing to me, because Emilia Clarke didn't go up on stage and go, "What up, guys? Check out these guys." That didn't happen.
Right.
I took on a character, and the character had things happen to her. I also didn't oh my God, you're fireproof? Like, that's something that I never get asked. I never get asked that, but I get asked about nudity a huge amount. So it makes me kind of question, like, why do people get so into this as an idea of like, because as an actor, I always knew that certain things were going to happen. I was going to have to cry. Mm-hmm. I was going to have to maybe do a little bit of violence in some kind, like be hit or hit. And how do you do that safely? Mm-hmm. And also falling in love, sex, all of the stuff that goes along with that. That's also, as an actor, if you're portraying life. But it is something that I get asked more than any other question.
But I think what part B of the question is that, it's interesting how it was sort of subverted to show that she is actually very much in control. So maybe the first time, or one of the first times we see this, she is essentially being raped by her husband.
Yeah.
But the next time, she's doing it on her own terms.
Exactly. I think it was brave of the show to do this, to do a character development that went there. Mm-hmm. And I think that it paid off in that sense. It was a risk that people took, that the show took, and it worked because it's exactly that. It was a way of showing a girl taking control, a woman taking control. And I think it had a huge social commentary about that. And I think it had a powerful impact that really, I don't know, it's the most vulnerable thing you could see. It's the single most vulnerable thing you could see happen to anyone, man or woman.
And the reality is that if people are actually paying attention, there are probably few female characters in TV history who have been as powerful in their TV universe as she is. I mean, freeing slaves, leading all these people, being how many times have we seen a female leader of that many people at that high a level?
No, exactly. And so it genuinely is something that I find really difficult handling, because I was reading an article the other day that Michiel, who was my gorgeous Dario, and the interviewer put down, because Emilia Clarke takes her clothes off all the time, and I'm like, that's not fair, not accurate, and it makes me really sad, because exactly as you say, Daenerys is so much more than someone who had scenes where that happened. It's so much more, and she as a character is so powerful within the show and within the realms of it. So it gets you're really like, why don't we just keep talking about that?
Right. And I think also, by the way, I saw there's at least one report that says that 40% of Game of Thrones viewers are women. I don't think they would be necessarily tuning in if they felt that she was purely, for the male gaze.
No, exactly. It's just really an interesting comment on our society that is a question that people want to talk about all the time. And I'm like, hey guys, you know what? Just let's take it somewhere else.
Yeah. Logistically, though, with the stuff, I mean, you've said that each season as it's gone on, the technical apparatuses or whatever around you have just gotten bigger and more impressive.
Yeah.
And I wonder, as somebody who is acting opposite, I don't know what, but not what we see.
Tennis balls.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably the equivalent of like a mechanical bull or whatever with some of the dragons.
Although this season is badass. What they've made, I'm like, it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah. But how do you keep that acting kind of grounded in reality where you are having an emotional connection with your dragons or whatever it requires of you? Like, is there a secret to doing that when, again, it's not something like you had, maybe by the time you did Terminator or something or Star Wars and you had to do it, you've got some experience, but you were like thrown in the deep end with that.
Well, because in drama school, you're manifesting emotions with people that aren't the people that in your mind you would be saying this to. And that kind of happens in other parts. You could be talking to an actor in the scene, your scene partner, who's giving you nothing.
Right.
That happens. That does happen where you're like, hey, in the eyes? You want to look in the eyes? Okay, fine. Sure, look at my ear. We're good with that. So that is, as an actor, whilst you can sometimes have the luck of walking into a set where you go, I don't need to do anything. This is so incredible. This is real. This is tangible. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can see it. And it's all helpful for the scene. A lot of the time you're not. a lot of the time you're in a studio and you're acting with someone who maybe isn't giving you whatever it is. So it's a skill that as an actor you have to have. You have to be able to endow that person, that thing, that table with as much truth as you possibly can. So when it turns from a person who you kind of, with into a green screen, sometimes the green's easier.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not gonna lie, occasionally a tennis ball, you're like, okay, only occasionally.
All right, so we're coming off the most recent season was the 7th, the one from last fall. What stands out to you the most? What are you proudest of about that one, which was the first in which you got to work with a lot of these people who
my pals.
Yeah, all these guys that
They let me in the group.
Yeah. What was for you the kind of highlight takeaway from that season?
It's exactly that, the camaraderie that I suddenly felt, because I've been out on my own a lot. They kind of, season 1, we were all like absolutely in it together in the trenches, like making something, being like, we don't know what we're doing. Right. And then I just got like kind of put somewhere else in a desert somewhere for a little while.
Right.
And so coming back and seeing everyone it's just been the best. It's just been really, really fun. And you're like chilling in the green room being like, yeah, guys, we're going to have a good time.
Right.
So the highlight has been that. The highlight has been surrounded by people who going through the same thing. Yeah.
Since 2010, I guess, which, whatever, the year prior to the show going out for the first time, the way I've seen it broken down, I think it's correct, is like 7 months of every year, this is your life. Game of Thrones is your life, right?
Yeah.
And often starting 3 a.m.
Yeah.
for hair and makeup, which,
yes.
Speaking of inequality, I don't know if the men have to necessarily get up that early as well, but...
No, tell me about it. I think there's a lot of... I thought it was just certain things, but actually you just speak to a lot of ladies and we're all doing the same.
Yeah.
We're all doing that
and
early,
long,
cool.
long days after that. But this is all to ask the question, which is, so you got these other 5 months of the year. You would be within your rights to like take it easy. Like honestly, like why not like relax? So what is it that instead, just to list for folks, you've done the 8 shows a week of Breakfast at Tiffany's on Broadway in 2013.
Oy.
You did Sarah Connor, the, of course, iconic character from Terminator in Terminator Genesis. We've got this next Star Wars coming. I don't know if you can share anything about who you're playing there. Also this year, I guess, is Above Suspicion. But like, why, when you're getting brutalized for 7 months of the year, why push yourself that hard for the other 5?
Why not? Because I really love what I do. I'm an absolute workaholic. And in that same vein of I left drama school and gave myself a year, I don't know, I'm pretty fatalistic about this industry because I think that what's doing so good today maybe isn't going to do so good tomorrow. So why not grab it with both hands and live it and kind of, I feel like it's the only way I can get better as an actor. The only way I can figure out what it is that I actually want to do is to try everything. I always said that from the beginning. I was always like, I want to just try to do everything to figure out what bits I really like and what bits I really don't like, so that when I'm older, I can feel a bit more kind of secure in going, no, you know what? I know what it is that I like. I know what it is that I don't. I know that I'm ready for this, or I know that I'm ready to actually do something completely different. I mean, that's never going to happen, and I just kind of addicted to it.
In your mind, is it important to have specifically a film career simultaneously? Now, you've obviously... Now the highest point you can be in TV doesn't mean you wouldn't want to do more TV necessarily, but like, is film specifically alluring to you? Yeah,
I think that the stage is something I'll always go back to because it's like going back to drama school. You just got to check in with those muscles. You got to check in with it. And also it's like there is no camaraderie like the ensemble of a theatre. Nothing like it. You can't be closer to people, and I love that. So that's kind of magical. And then screen, I just think there's so much I don't know. And there's so much I want to know, and there's the art of how movies get made and of what you can actually do is kind of mind-blowing to me, and there's so much that I'm learning all the time, and that's really exciting. So I want to make them. I want to be a part of making those choices because I've witnessed movie making, and whilst we're talking about a television show, it ain't TV,
you
folks.
Guys are really doing a film for TV.
Yeah, like I've done Terminator and Star Wars, and both were like, "But you've never seen anything like this," and I'm like, actually, I have. Sorry, I hate to break it to you folks, but I gotta that dragon. So I've watched for a few years now, just movie making at the highest level.
Yeah.
And I've asked questions and I've learnt a lot. And I've learnt a lot about character development and how you tell a story, how you really tell a story, and what are the kind of stories that I want to watch, and how watching them kind of being shown to the masses, and like what people are responding to, and what do you kind of, and you get to a point in your career where you just want to take some creative control,
right,
and you want to make some choices.
Well, just to your point about at least being comparable, Game of Thrones, with some of these big movies you've done, Alan Taylor, who directed a lot of the Game of Thrones episodes, directed your Terminator movies.
No, exactly.
But anyway, were there any big film roles that kind of eluded you that you really wanted? I heard one, maybe.
Loads. Yeah. Obviously, you watch a movie and you go, damn it.
Right. Well, like stuff where you were like in the mix, and for whatever. And then I'm going to do the flip side of this question in a second. But like something you really wanted that you didn't get.
I mean, got you in the moment. It's like your every breath, and then now I'm sitting here forgetting everything.
I heard
like,
Ex Machina.
No. Oh yes, no, I was desperate for that. Yeah.
That was one.
God, yeah, that was just. I think I would have been pretty bad at it though. My face doesn't stop moving. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, this ain't robotic. This is some like, there's got to be some serious intel behind this robot face. Right. But I just thought that the subject matter was really, really exciting and dark and cool, and it made an amazing movie.
And then it was great. It was great. The flip side, though, is something where they really wanted you, and you did not necessarily want them. I heard there may have been another project that could have required a bit more nudity again.
Oh God, I knew you were going to go there.
Which,
I literally remember saying that out loud and going, I should never have said that. It genuinely wasn't a nudity thing.
We're talking about 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. It was just, I knew the enormity of what that was. I mean, what is it, the most successful book ever or something? It's insane.
I mean, you also work on a pretty
aside from Game of Thrones, obviously.
Right.
They've successful books. Right. But I knew it was going to be something absolutely forever. That was it.
Right.
And I just didn't think I could take that. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I could take that on at all. I was not in any way, at that point in my life, I wasn't ready placed for that to be something that I was going to be cool doing. Because of that. And because also it's that thing, you sign up for 3, which is every studio movie, and you're like, well, what if I don't know what I want to do in 3 years? What if I change my mind?
You sign up for 3 years or 3 movies?
3 movies.
And is that
which, you could be 6 years down the line and they'll go,
yeah, time for your 3rd.
Yeah.
Well, what's the case with like Star Wars? Are you multiple?
Yes, but it's kind of because it's one of their standalone movies. I have no idea how that will manifest itself. Yeah, and it could be maybe that, this character is. No, I can't say a single thing. I have no idea. But like, I think it's like an insurance thing that certain studios have, where like they have the option of doing that.
Right.
And also it's Star Wars, folks. There's that. Like,
they've really been having a lot of
very lucky of me.
Badass women in Star Wars lately. This is in that vein. That's like you will. I don't know anything about the character. I haven't seen the movie yet. Haven't let us see the movie yet.
No, of course I haven't.
But you want to give any sort of a tease about what that will entail?
It will entail some seriously good movie watching. Okay. It's a Star Wars movie.
Right. Well, that's a big thing.
It's a huge thing. No, it's good. I think people are gonna like this.
Last few things are just sort of like big picture. We've obviously, as we've talked about, seen a massive transformation of Daenerys over all these years of seasons of the show. And I wonder if you can just maybe comment on that, and also how simultaneously now we're talking like 8-9 years of your life.
Yeah.
Have you noticed parallels between those two things?
Yeah, definitely. Occasionally, in some years, it's uncanny where you're like, wow, what I'm going to mentally as an actor need to play this part now is what I'm living with. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of incredible. Obviously, different. I mean, take Poetic License. Right. Not exactly the same. So the transformation of Daenerys is the greatest gift I've been given as an actor. 100%.
And it's you've said like basically a girl growing up into a woman, which. I mean, that's what your 20s generally are.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Bad mistakes have been made.
No people have been killed, though.
No people have been killed. Right. No. Yes, no people were hurt in the making
Emilia,
of my 30s. Yeah, it's been an extraordinary journey to go on with her. I've been able to just kind of witness things and be able to harness things and make something so extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's just a complete once in a lifetime thing. And it's incredibly emotional, this final season that we're in the middle of right now.
It's shooting
now. Right now, folks.
All right. What is your favorite line that you've gotten to deliver on the show?
Oh, goodness me. That's a really good one. I mean, when I first said Dracarys, that was pretty badass.
What about the episode that you're proudest of your own work in? In other words, and here's the scenario for you.
Okay.
If there's, years from now, a college or graduate class on Game of Thrones, which, by the way, they do this at Harvard and places like that.
No.
And if they're going to devote one class to studying your specific contributions to the show, which means they can only watch one episode to see what you did on the show at its best, what would that episode be?
Oh, cool, blimey. The most spine-tingling moment I've had, I mean, aside from the ones that are happening right now, I think is the moment when I let them know that the game's up on me not understanding Valyrian.
Oh,
because
great.
that was truly the beginning of a lot. And I think as Emilia in my life at that point, I was kind of suddenly going, oh, this is exciting. I can make some choices and see them through. And I think it happened at the same time as this part of Daenerys really coming to the forefront. And I think it was just the most kind of, it was playful, and at the same time it was deadly. And it started something that at the time was like so satisfying, so incredibly satisfying to be like, game's up, folks, and guess what? I'm going to kill you all.
So we're talking again about the Dracarys episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really raucous filming it, and it was kind of, it was just the most, it got the biggest reaction from people, which was just satisfying, I think, because it was one of those scenes that even filming it, you feel it. And you feel it loads. And oftentimes with those huge big set pieces, you don't really get to feel it because they're just going to do your part of it. And then
I would bet that's similar to the episode where you're lifted up by all the slaves you freed.
Yeah. Misa. There's a really funny thing why they think I'm saying pizza.
Yeah.
Holding up pizza.
Right.
Yeah, the Misa. Exactly. Because what that does, especially looking back on it now, it kind of was the real beginning of this turn. And I think it was the real beginning of people being like, oh, I'm going to back this one. Like, let's go with Daenerys.
Yeah, right,
let's do that one. She's going to win.
Yeah.
So I think that was just really liberating and exciting, and like just everything felt good. Everything, like the motors were all running and it was just good to go. The other thing, actually, one of my favorite bits was the first scene I have with Tyrion. When I first meet him. That's pretty beautiful. And just Peter's just the best.
Yeah.
He's just incredible. So working with him is just a dream.
So many to pick from.
So then, I mean, I could go on for absolute ages. That's definitely it.
Yeah.
But yeah, my God, what's coming up? I mean,
that answer could still change.
Yeah, it's really.
You're struggling to keep it in. I can see. Well, if we can help you to alleviate.
No, I won't. I won't. I just want to let you know it's gonna be good.
Well, so that leads into the second to last one. Like, how long have you known where this is going to end? How this is going to end?
I don't know that I even do now.
In the middle of shooting the season. So these are 6 episodes of the final season, which comes out in 2019. You're saying in the middle of doing it.
I think they're filming a bunch of stuff and they're not telling us. Being serious and being deadly serious. I think that they don't even trust us.
So you don't know who ends up on the throne?
No. I don't even know. I read what I read last year. I've read those scripts. Holy moly. Took me a couple of hours to come down from that. That was like the most intense.
But you did not read the last
of my life.
episode.
I did, and since then, people are saying something on set, and you're just like, I think that they're filming other stuff, and everyone's being really cagey about it.
Maybe they.
And then there's a lot of like, wait, why are you? What are you? Wait a second, because there's lots of different endings that could happen that I think that we're all doing all of them, and we aren't being told which is actually what's going to happen. My God.
Well, the last question is just, that day is going to come, it sounds like pretty soon from now, where you're going to shoot your last scenes on this show.
Yeah, exactly. So out of order with, you just end up shooting what you...
Right.
Like, my last scene on a bunch of movies has been like a close-up of my hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, okay, that's
But that,
great.
begs the question, how do you imagine you will feel on that day? And also, what do you think, how does somebody follow Game of Thrones? What's the next chapter?
God, exactly. You just spoke my 3 a.m. thoughts, people. I wake up in the middle of the night. I truly get really emotional just even thinking about the end of the show, because I was talking to someone about this recently, and what you're leaving behind, it's like leaving home for the first time, because what you're leaving behind is you're moving into this really exciting, unknown territory of like, who knows the excitement and the joys that could happen, or the pitfalls, hence my fatality about, what happens. Right. But what you're leaving behind is everything that has happened to me in my 20s. 10 years of my life was woven within the show. There's so much that's happened to all of us, and you're walking away from that. And so there's a huge amount of like real life, like real life stuff that I'm leaving there. And so it's incredibly emotional. And Daenerys is so much a part of who I am, and I'm so much a part of who she is. And so it's this incredibly frightening thing to walk away from, but at the same time, unbelievably exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for asking me questions.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.